From ASE certified expert technicians to new smart services that keep you connected, Pep Boys Auto Service and Tire Centers keep your ride humming. Open 7 days a week. Pep Boys, we go further to help you go farther.
More than likely, protests. At a news conference, Houston Police Chief Troy Fenner said protesters must be peaceful.
We will respect everybody's right to protest and speak their concerns in their voice. But we will not tolerate destruction of property, nor will we tolerate people assaulting individuals.
Former President Trump and other leading Republicans scheduled to address the three-day gun industry event. Also at srnnews.com, Russia pressing the West to lift sanctions, seeking to shift the blame for a growing food crisis, which is worsened by Kyiv's inability to ship millions of tons of grain and other agricultural products because of the conflict. Kremlin says President Putin told Italy's prime minister Russia would help with grain exports if sanctions are lifted, but Britain is accusing Moscow of trying to hold the world hostage in ransom and said there would be no sanctions relief. A lawsuit filed Wednesday by 3 Illinois Republicans argues the state should not count mail-in ballots that arrive after the date of an election.
The suit was filed in federal court in Chicago on behalf of Representative Michael Bose from Carbondale, a state GOP committee person Laura Polistrini, and Susan Sweeney, who was one of the state's Republican presidential electors in 2020. A spokesman for the Illinois State Board of Elections says that it does not comment on pending litigation. The suit asks a judge to prevent election authorities from counting mail-in ballots that arrive in the days following in-person voting, arguing that a ballot is
that is launch pad for commercial rockets on the Georgia coast want a federal court to throw out the project's government license, saying the FAA failed to adequately consider safety risks. More news at srnnews.com.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for health care can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 866-89-BIBLE. That's 866-89-BIBLE. 866-89-BIBLE.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get access. Well, not anymore, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide with deals like our Silver Unlimited plan for just $45 a month and no contract. And get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for $249, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless. Available at Walmart and Walmart.com. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
WQEE 99.1 FM Noonan. WBRQ LaGrange. WZEV 90.5 FM Lineville. JC Sports Networks.
Good morning. I'm Gail Nankervis, your host of the Less Sucky Divorce radio show. And I'm the owner of Blue Skies Mediation in Peachtree City. I help people get a less sucky divorce. Not you, but maybe your neighbor or friend or sister. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst and a licensed family mediator, and I use these skills with my clients to help them get a professional divorce without escalating fees and emotions. My goal is to help them get through the divorce process while retaining their sanity, their assets, and most importantly, their integrity. So the topic of divorce for a radio show might seem a little weird, but with more than 50% of marriages ending in divorce, I thought it was important to share information and resources with the community. Even though divorce is very common, people don't typically talk about it while they're going through it. You usually just hear the nightmare stories at the end of it. So my goal is to change the way people in our community get divorced through educating them about different aspects, the process, the financial side, the emotional side, and everything in between. I'm excited to be here today, and we will be right back with the Less Sucky Divorce radio show.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds.
Good morning. This is Gail Nankervis, your host of the Less Sucky Divorce radio show and owner of Blue Skies Mediation in Peachtree City. I'm glad to be here with you today, and today I have with me a guest and a friend, Dana Black. She is the owner of Constantly Varied Nutrition, and we're going to talk about how, as divorce is one of the biggest stressors in your life, ways that we can practically manage our bodies and our minds and get through this hard time. So this lesson today especially is for people going through divorce or contemplating divorce, but this can apply to anybody because we all need to take care of ourselves. Every time you get on an airplane, the flight attendants tell you to put your own mask on before you put it on somebody else, and that's what you have to do at any point in life where you have stress, especially in divorce, is you need to take care of yourself, because otherwise you're not going to be able to make the decisions you need to, you're not going to be able to be supportive of your family as you need to, be productive at work, etc. And so Dana's here with me today to talk a little bit about that. So first I'll let Dana introduce herself. Welcome to the show, Dana. I'm so happy you're here. Would you please introduce yourself to our guests?
Thanks so much for having me, Gail. I appreciate it. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening and tuning in today. Like Gail said, my name is Dana Black. I'm the owner and founder of Constantly Varied Nutrition, and I work with clients to help them mitigate stress first and foremost, because stress comes into our bodies from a ton of different ways. The foods that we eat can bring us stress or lower it. The things that we drink or don't drink can bring us stress and or lower it. And every single thing that's happening inside of our lives can either be a source of stress or a source of mitigation. And so I work with busy working parents to help them figure out where their stresses are coming from and help them mitigate it from the inside out.
Mitigate.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me what you mean by mitigate.
Well, we live in the year 2022, and we know that with everything going on, we're not getting rid of our stress.
Okay.
And so for all of the gurus out there, for all of the practitioners that are out there that are telling you to get rid of your stress, and you're kind of laughing to yourself behind the scenes, and you're like, yeah, right.
Right.
That's actually true. We are not going to ever be in a situation where we can get rid of all of our stresses. However, what we can do is we can have a better awareness of our stresses from both an inside perspective and an outside perspective. So the things that we don't know that can be stress, like daylight saving time, but then the things that we do know that can be stress, like traffic. Okay. If we have a better awareness of those things and we know how they operate and what they do to and for our bodies, then we have an opportunity to put healthy lifestyle strategies in place in our life that will help our bodies feel less of the effects of those things versus that like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out kind of thing that we all feel all the time.
Right. So when I was going through my divorce, I obviously had a lot of stress like most people do. And one thing I tried to do to take care of myself was get to the gym regularly. And somehow, maybe you can help me understand this, but it almost backfired on me. I was going to class, my children were young, and we had staggering school times. One had to leave at 6:30, one at 7:15, one at 8, so it was like a revolving door in my house. So I needed to be back from the gym by 6 in the morning. So I started my workout class at 4:50 a.m. And I got up, worked out, came home, took care of the family, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that would help relieve stress. It was boot camp, so it was really, really challenging and, like, you know,
high intense, lots of
reps. It was like, remember that show, The Biggest Loser, where you're like flipping the tires and doing the ropes, speeding the ropes and stuff like that. It was great. It was really intense, but it was really hard on the body too. And not only did I not lose weight, but I think I started to gain weight, and I still had stress, and I couldn't figure out, you know,
people kept saying, oh, you must be building muscles, but my clothes never changed. I did this for about 7 months before I said I'm too tired to keep going to the gym at 450.
Yeah.
So how is it that something like that backfires on you?
Well, you had the right intentions.
I always do.
So let's be clear there, right? Where we need some kind of an outlet a lot of times for that. And the gym is an easy one because, you know, I can take my aggression out on the battle ropes instead of my soon-to-be ex-husband. I can take my aggression out on a barbell, you know, when my husband just lost his job, because truthfully, I did the same thing. My husband was our main breadwinner for a long period of time, and he lost his job out of nowhere. And we were in the process of losing our house and having to go on public assistance. And so I went to the gym and did the same thing and took my aggression and my stress out on the gym, and started spending longer time at the gym, doing extra workouts and all of these kinds of things. And it's great to have an outlet. We all need something that will allow us to proverbially scream into a pillow, right? And you can also scream into a pillow. That's perfectly acceptable.
My counselor advised that at one point too. Or beat the pillow. You could
beat the pillow too. Where we as females especially, and guys, I am going to take it to the female side for 1 second because our systems are a little bit less resilient than you guys are as men. But what you might have been doing also is, in order to get up and go to the gym at 4:50 in the morning, you were probably losing sleep at the same time, because you probably didn't think that you needed to offset the amount of sleep that you were getting waking up that early in the morning to go to the gym by going to sleep earlier in the evening, right? And so we're still staying up till 10, 11 o'clock at night, but now instead of waking up at 6 a.m., we're waking up at 4:30 so that we can throw our gym clothes on, unless you decided to sleep in them the night before to make it more simple, to then get to the gym. And so now we are getting less sleep every night. Getting less sleep every night is a huge stress on our body. Our circadian rhythm runs our metabolism, which runs our thyroid function, which runs our digestion and our stress response and everything else that our body does. And anytime we lose sleep, whether it's traveling across the country and getting jet lagged, whether it's daylight saving time, whether it's just legitimately burning the candle at both ends, whenever you're getting less sleep, that is an instantaneous stress response on your body. So now we're taking that stress response that you personally had, and we're adding super intense exercise onto it as well, and let me be very, very clear here. Exercise is a very positive stress on the body. It's called a eustress. However, the type of exercise that you are doing can also, at the same time it is a positive stress, can also be a negative stress. So if we're, and you know how we do it in America, like everything's bigger, better, faster, stronger, all of those kinds of things, right? And so we can't just do fitness for the sake of fitness. Like now it has to be fitness. And our fitness has gotten more intense and more intense and more intense over the years. And now it's not, you just go to a gym and you pump some iron and you do some bicep curls and some bench press and some laying leg raises and things like that. We're doing CrossFit and we're doing F45 and we're doing boot camp and we're doing all of these things. I mean, boot camp classes, you're looking at, 300 to 500 reps of exercise in a 30 to 45 minute long period. That is an extreme stressor on the body that, if you are not recovering properly from, has now gone away from the positive stress side and gone to the negative stress side. Following?
Yes.
So now we've got lack of sleep, which is a stress. Now we've got extremely intense exercise, which is a stress. And then you were probably trying to lose weight at the time. So do you feel like you were eating enough, or were you on a quote unquote diet at the time?
Oh, good Lord. I had done so many different things to lose weight. I was probably eating like a spinach salad with a chicken breast, and that was it for the day,
Yeah. So we've got to remember too, and this is something that a lot of our listeners probably don't know, is that our body recovers from stress in one of two ways: sleeping and eating. And so we've already established the fact that you weren't sleeping enough. Now we've established the fact that you were attempting to lose weight, taking your aggression out on the gym, doing a lot of intense exercise, and eating, one, if not maybe 2 meals a day if we're lucky. Sure, that was really nutrient-dense food, right? We've got the grilled chicken, we've got the spinach, we've got all the other vegetables that go along with it, which are great, but that is not enough fuel to keep your body functioning at a peak level. When we're having to deal with 3 kids, when we're having to deal with a job, when we're having to deal with, finding out that your marriage is dissolving and all of the things that come into that. Where am I going to live? What are my finances going to look like? How is this going to get broken up? Who's going to take care of this? What's going to happen with this? You've got all of these things going on at the same time you're trying to hold it together for everybody else, because maybe or maybe not, you haven't even told your children what's going on yet, kind of thing. And so all of these things are compounding on your body, but you're not sleeping enough to mitigate it, and you're not eating enough to mitigate it. And so that can only, our bodies are extremely resourceful. Our bodies are the most intelligent machine on the face of the planet. But they will only adapt for so long before you will start being sent messages that this isn't going appropriately. Okay, in a situation where we are overusing exercise as a coping mechanism, we may start to notice that we are not recovering from workouts and we're staying sore for a long period of time, that we are starting to experience some chronic overuse injuries, like little aches and pains and tweaks. Maybe your joints are starting to ache. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult to get out of bed in the morning. Maybe you're starting to notice some brain fogginess in the afternoon. You're flying off the handle a little bit more than you would normally.
God, that sounds like every day for me, Dana.
These are all, well, and here's the really frustrating and sad part, I think, for most people, is that they haven't been educated as to the fact that every single one of those things is a sign. Right? Just like your car gives you a check engine light when there's something going on. Just like your car dings at you when you don't put your seatbelt on. Just like you get a low fuel light or 50 miles to empty. Those kinds of things, right? Your car is now smart enough to tell you what it needs versus you not knowing. Because the original cars didn't have, they had cranks. They didn't even have gas. But when we transferred over into gas, they didn't even have a gas gauge to begin with. So how the heck are you supposed to know how far you can drive without running out of gas, right? Now we have all of these things, but we don't remember that our body has the same mechanisms. We literally live inside the most, technologically advanced machine ever. And it can do so many cool things. It can keep us alive despite the fact that we're not sleeping enough, that we're overtraining, that we're under-eating. But, like you mentioned, my clothes never changed. I wasn't losing any weight. I started to feel like I was too tired to be able to go. Every single one of those things is a sign that you're trying to kill yourself and that you need to chill out.
Yikes.
And so to prevent, hopefully there's people on the other end of this radio that are kind of shaking their heads and be like, oh yeah, I've done that before, or raising their hands. Like if this has been you, that's fine. You didn't have that awareness. But now that we have that awareness, how do we actually mitigate? And I'll give you a perfect example, actually, before we even go into how to fix it. I was training at my personal gym the other day, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and one of our members was there, and she started to pass out in the middle of the workout. We were running outside, it was hot, she wasn't able to start to keep up, and I finally sat her down and I was like, hey, what's going on? And this is a person who has also received my nutrition coaching and counseling before, and I said, are you eating like you should be eating? Well, I wasn't losing any weight and I really want to lose weight, so I cut all of my carbs out. Okay, Well, why'd you do that? Well, I mean, it's, because I wasn't losing any weight. And I said, okay, well, tell me what you got going on right now, because I know that you have a special needs child at home. Like, that's pretty stressful in and of itself. And she said, yeah, I mean, we're doing okay on that front. She's got the resources that she needs, and my other daughter is doing really well. But I'm in the middle of going through a divorce, and it's just been really, really, really stressful. And I stopped, and I was like, okay, so tell me again why you cut out all of your carbs. She was like, well, I really want to lose weight. I said, okay, but let's look at what you have going on in your life right now. Okay. You have a child that takes a great deal of your time and effort, as they all do. Even kids who don't have special needs take a lot of our time and attention. So you are giving of yourself in that area. You are going through a pretty traumatic situation right now. Your divorce is not going very well, and that's not the greatest. What is going on for that is taking your attention every single day? How much of your time and your bandwidth and your energy is going towards this fight, towards thinking about what's going on, what actions he's going to take next, what's he doing, all of these kinds of things, what are the lawyers doing, and all of that stuff. I said, you also run a nonprofit for your special needs child, and you also work full time. And so I was like, okay, you've gone through my program. You know that I teach you about what stress is and how it impacts your body and what things we need to be looking for. I said, you are out kicking your coverage right now in terms of mitigation for the amount of stress that you have going on. She was eating basically one meal a day. And it was what you just mentioned. It was vegetables and a little bit of meat. She had no carbohydrate. And then she's asking herself to come in and do a high intensity exercise situation in the middle of a hot day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is extremely important for you to hear and understand. That is actually making you sicker. It's making your body want to gain weight versus lose weight. And it is severely damaging your thyroid function while you do it. And if you don't know anything about thyroid function, it has a ton of different functions, but one of which is our growth and development, which is weight. And so when we start to stress the adrenal system so much over time, the adrenals start to kind of tax themselves out, and then they start to trickle down to that thyroid function. And so I told her, I said, listen, I've got to have you eating. It is extremely important. You have the entire program that we've already gone through. I've taught you how to eat. Now I need you to actually take care of yourself and do it. Because this is not, number one, when you're in the middle of a divorce situation, that is not the time to be trying to lose weight. That is the time to be focusing on mitigation. That is the time to be focusing on your actual health from a mental perspective, from a physical perspective. The weight, if you want it and need it to change, will change. But when you're in the middle of the gun battle, is not the time to be worried about whether or not your clothes fit. You should be worried about whether or not you're going to live or die.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
We've got to focus on what the priorities are, and that's actually taking care of our body. Weight is merely a symptom that some other system in the body is dysfunctional.
Okay. So you said something that's interesting. You teach people how to eat. Isn't that funny? We have like more food than anyone could possibly have in this country, right?
Yep.
We go to any grocery store and it's just overloaded with food.
Yep.
So you think we know how to eat, you would think, and yet we don't. So what are some of the things you do to educate people about how to eat and how to change whatever they're buying at the grocery store and putting in their bodies? What are some of the, we all think we eat, we're full, we're fat, right? We must be eating. Right?
Well, there's so many different terms. We're full and we're fat. I love that. Honestly, the majority of Americans are overfed and undernourished. And that's coming from a few different places. And there's a couple of different yellow brick roads we can go down with that. Number one, it's the misconceptions that are continuing, like even in this day and age, continuing to be misrepresented in media, in terms of how we should be eating and what we should be eating, right? You know, starting back in the 70s, we have been on a trajectory of these foods are good and these foods are bad.
Margarine.
Margarine is not even food.
So that's where I think it all went downhill. Was margarine.
Was the creation of margarine. Honestly, the creation of processed foods in order to make our lives easier was really the catalyst of our downfall when it came to that. However, it's actually the mindset piece that goes into that, and it's all about the paradigms that we have grown up under when it comes to food. So we do have this huge misinformation about good food versus bad food. I'm here to be the first one that is probably going to tell you this, but food is an inanimate object. It can't be good or bad. It just is. Now, rather than using the terms good and bad, like spinach is good, a Twinkie is bad, no, spinach is more nutrient dense. Spinach is a whole real food, whereas a Twinkie can literally live forever and never go bad because it has so many preservatives in it. And there's literally nothing in it that can actually fuel our body. Mm-hmm. So rather than saying good and bad, we should be saying more nutrient dense and less nutrient dense. What does this food actually provide my body? Okay, chicken provides my body with protein and with healthy dietary fats. Amino acids are what create every single cell in our body. So without adequate amounts of protein coming from animal sources, we legitimately don't exist. Yet somehow our bodies have found a way to evolve and adapt. But it's not without sickness that goes along with it, right? So we've got that as being the main conundrum that's keeping people from knowing how to eat. You know, everyone knows how to eat. I should be eating more of those nutrient-dense foods, but I don't because the Twinkie tastes really good.
Yeah.
Or the Coke tastes really good.
Right. Or you do it. You have the Coke and the Twinkie, and then you deprive yourself of more food because you've already had your quote-unquote calories for the day. Oh. But your body is like, hey, I need a little help over here.
I'm at the caloric need that I have for the day, but I've had zero actual nutrients. Mm-hmm. I've had no protein. I've had no healthy carbohydrates. I've had no vitamins and minerals, right? Because I've done nothing but eat McDonald's all day. And there's no part of anything that comes from McDonald's that's actually real food. Unless it's a salad. But then what they put on the salad is bastardized as well. So we've got that as being a main catalyst that's preventing people from getting and staying healthy. The other thing that I'm finding in the majority of my clients, and granted I've been doing this full time for 7 years at this point, it is the mindset and the paradigms with which we grew up under. Okay? So think about it, right? We are now, well, you and I at least, not necessarily all of our listeners, but, you know, we're in our 40s. So we came from...
I love that you think I'm in my 40s.
I technically assume all people that are adults are age 27. However, we come from the generation directly after the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And what we've looked back at from a food perspective from those people who grew up in the Great Depression, i.e. our grandparents, was that they were forced to clean their plate. Mm-hmm. And so then they, when they had children, were forcing their children to clean their plate. You better clean that plate. You better clean that plate every single meal, right? You better clean that plate. Well, why? Well, if you lived in the Great Depression, it was like one little square of Spam and an olive and you were done. And I mean, that was all your family could afford in any given day. And you best believe that whether or not that stuff tasted like blah, you were going to eat it. I have to remember we're on the radio and I can't cuss.
Right.
And so you had to clean your plate. But that next generation was extremely affluent. They had jobs. The country was booming. The economy was booming. We had more money than we'd ever had. So we had more than enough food. But that knowledge, what those men and women had ingrained in them, became a paradigm, and it was what they thought needed to be. And so their kids had to clean their plate. But now we have an overabundance of food. We have plenty of food. So rather than allow my body to tell me when I'm satiated and when I've had enough by eating a meal at a normal time trajectory, taking the time to chew, all of that kind of stuff, now I have to clean my plate because you best not waste the food that's on our plate, regardless of whether or not it's too much.
Right. Oh, so let's get now to talk about portion size, right?
Well, and as we have become more affluent as a society, that has become one of our ways of overcompensation as a direct result of that food scarcity and that food lack that came from the Great Depression. And so it's a compound of everything generationally that we have learned when it comes to food. So now you've got our parents' generation who were made to clean their plate. Some people had zero issues with weight as a result of that. Some people had a lot of issues with weight as a result of that. And so then you get into our parents' generation, which is getting into the late 70s, early 80s, when exercise really became a thing. And now you've got, well, if you want to control your weight because you've been forced to clean your plate all the time, now you've got to exercise and diet. And so I have a client right now who is in her mid-60s who her mother put on her first diet when she was 9.
Oh.
So she spent the entirety, granted we didn't even start working together until she was over the age of 60, had spent her entire life from age 9 up until 60 chronically dieting.
Wow.
But also coming from that mentality of you've got to clean your plate and eat everything on it. So we have a huge disconnect between what our body needs and what we're feeding it. Because you go out to Longhorn and you get the 37-ounce steak and the giant baked potato and the salad and the appetizer and all this stuff. And if you're coming from a paradigm of I've got to clean my plate, you have zero knowledge of that connection between your stomach and your brain of when you're actually full. Because we have neurotransmitters and hormones that regulate that. But we have no knowledge and concept of them because we have lost such touch with our body in terms of what it needs and what it's able to have. So it's you've got to understand those two things, right? Because that's actually where we start. It's not about the food, it's about your relationship with the food.
And your mindset. So we only have a couple of minutes left.
I know.
And all we've talked about is food. Yeah. So I'd love to have you on the show another time because I want to do like a deeper dive into actually what you do and how you work with your clients. But before we run out of time today, I'd like you to take the next minute and a half, if you don't mind, and just give a quick summary of we'll get into it more detail, but if somebody comes to you, what are the things you look for, and how do you help them through it, just so people understand, can reach you if they need to?
Yeah, I think, if this is a situation that you're going through and you are struggling with an extreme amount of stress, like Gail said in the beginning, whether or not that has to do with a divorce situation right now, or whether it's a job loss, or, you're just overwhelmed with life and all of the things that are going on, you've got to start at what I call, just like Dave Ramsey does, your 4 walls. Okay, and your 4 walls in terms of your health are your sleep, your hydration, your food, and your movement. Okay. And we did a lot of talking about food and about movement and how those things can kind of go by the wayside, but it comes with taking a step back. Okay. If we're talking about sleep, I need you to start getting 7 to 8 hours of it. Most people in this country are getting 6 if they're lucky, which means they're chronically at a sleep deficit anyway, which means they're going to be experiencing more cravings. They're going to have difficulty making decisions about whether or not a food is optimal for them or not, and they're going to succumb to those cravings more often. So start backing your bedtime up in 30-minute increments to get you to that minimum 7-hour mark. If you can get 8 or more, that's even better. Okay? Hydration, just start drinking more water. If you don't love the way that it tastes, add a little bit of lemon juice, add a little bit of lime juice, add some blueberries, add some cucumber, add something natural, not a Mio drop because, oh my God, the chemicals, but do something that's going to make it taste great for you so that you can start getting more of it in. That's going to help you sleep. It's going to help you perform during the day. It's a huge stress mitigator, okay? Just start adding in some more vegetables. Make sure that you're getting protein at every single meal. Make sure that you're eating more whole, real food than processed food. Okay? Just start super simple and work your way up from there. Move your body every single day, but don't move it in a way that's killing you.
Okay.
You know, get a workout or just take a walk.
Okay.
Like, walking is great.
Yeah.
Just take a walk. Do some yoga.
Yeah, I have a client who is getting divorced now, obviously, and he's been just in so much stress. And he calls me now, not just to talk about the divorce, but also just to talk about his anxiety. And it made me feel so good. Yesterday he called me and I could hear birds chirping. I said, are you out for a walk? Because I tell him every day, take some deep breaths, go for a walk. So now when he calls me for his stress, he's like, at least knows to go. He's programmed to go get some fresh air and go for a walk and move his body.
L-theanine is also a supplement that would be super great for him. It'll help him sleep. It'll help bring the anxiety down naturally. You can find it at good whole quality at Sprouts, which is right down the road from us. It's a great one. For people who are experiencing lots of stress.
So Dana, I'm definitely going to have you back on if you will. But in the meantime, would you please let our listeners know how they can reach you if they'd like to?
Yeah, my website is constantlyvariednutrition.com. It has a contact us form. It's got my email and everything on it, so you can get in touch with me. You can find me at Instagram at Dana. What is my Instagram now? Dana L Black. I've got a Facebook business page, Constantly Varied Nutrition, and I also have a free group on Facebook called Harness Your Stress and Balance Your Life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing this information with us. And as always, this is Gail Nankervis. Thank you for joining us on the Less Sucky Divorce radio show. You can always reach out to me at Gail, Gail, at lesssuckydivorce.com with any questions, or if you need me to remind you how to reach Dana Black. Thank you for listening today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful weekend, Noonan.
Progressive presents Forced Metaphors about bundling your home and auto.
In sports, 3 goals is a hat trick. And when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, you get a hat trick of great savings and round-the-clock protection. So you might be thinking, wait, that's 2 things. A hat trick is 3. But in this metaphor, great savings counts as 2 goals, and so does round-the-clock protection. So it's like 4 goals, and that's more than 3. It's basic math.
Forced Metaphors, presented by Progressive. Bundle and protect today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Discount not available in all states or situations.